Well, it's not just a super Saturday. It is a super weekend of racing that kicks off Friday, racing from coast to coast. We're here to find some winners and make some money. We're handicapping all the action this weekend from Santa Anita to Belmont, and we're using the most powerful tool in handicapping, Stats Race Lens. I'm Dan Tordjman with America's Best Racing. Excited to be back here and to be joined by my good friends, Christina Blacker from TVG and Ellis Starr with Equibase. So we've got a lot to cover. As I mentioned, the action kicks off Friday at Santa Anita, and that's, fortunately for us, that's Christina's home track and right in her backyard. And so, Christina, I wanted to start with you and ask, before we dig into the particulars of these races, for anyone handicapping Santa Anita in particular, is there anything that you'd share in terms of things to expect at Santa Anita, whether it's preferred running styles, certain distances, dirt versus turf? What should we look out for?
Well, I think just in general, Dan, here in California, we talk a lot about that early speed. A lot of races are won in the first quarter mile, good gate speed being kind of involved early in getting that tactical position. But I will say the track has been a little slow in the mornings over the last couple of weeks. I've heard that from several trainers. So we'll see if that does change in the next, few days, if they do speed it up just a little bit as we come approaching opening day. And of course, on Saturday as well. It's also going to be very hot here this weekend, very dry, 90s as far as the temperatures go. So I'll keep an eye on the track conditions and what Dennis Moore does to, keep it in good shape for the weekend. We'll definitely be reporting that on TVG. And then one of the really exciting things is that the hill is back down the hill. Remember last year, they unveiled the new extension to the turf course where we could run those 6 and 6.5 furlong races on the straight, but we're back down the hill for the Eddy D. I'm really looking forward to seeing this very unique course make a return to racing here in Southern California.
I know Ellis is excited for it too. I know the Eddy D is one of his favorite races of this weekend, but Ellis, we've got everything from 2-year-old races to turf sprints, dirt routes. Now you're the expert when it comes to Stats Race Lens. Which one of these types of races do you think that Stats Race Lens could potentially be most beneficial, most helpful when you're trying to look for winners consistently and find prices?
Come on, all of them.
Come on, you got to pick one or two. Come on.
All of them. Yeah. Well, it really depends. The great thing about Stats Race Lens, honestly, is it's situational. So you're looking at 2-year-old races. So you can set things up to look for hot sires. Horses stretching out, as we're going to see in the Chandelier and the American Pharoah, first crop, second crop, how they did first time stretching out, if you have these stakes winners yet, those kinds of things. On the turf, on the downhill, we talked about, you can set templates to look at only those types of races. You can look at those races going back 5 years to when they ran a lot of races, like 400, I believe, over the last 5 years, not so many in the last year, of course. You'll be able to see those trainers, which jockeys did good at 6.5 down the hill. So really, it does help with everything, but specifically, it helps with the things that other people don't have access to, which is statistics about sires and dams of 2-year-olds going along, how they're doing, trainers. A lot of these horses are going from maiden to stakes. How good are trainers at assessing their horse's ability to take that big step up in class?
Well, the first one we're going to get to is going to test every one of these difficult search criteria and handicapping criteria, because it's a 5 furlong turf sprint for 2-year-olds. So we'll get into that in just a moment. I just wanted to mention for new customers who have not yet used Stats Race Lens, you can now try a 1-month unlimited Race Lens subscription for only $1. The promo code is SRLM1E. That's $129 value for $1. 1-month unlimited Race Lens subscription, and open to everyone, whether you've had a membership before or not. You get a quarterly unlimited Race Lens subscription for $199. The promo code is BC199. All right, let's dive into it. Friday, races at Santa Anita, and we're going to kick it off with race 5. It's the Speak Easy Stakes. As I mentioned a moment ago, 5 furlongs on the turf, 2-year-olds. I figured I'd just bite the bullet here and offer up a selection here and see what I could come up with. I ended up watching a lot of replays here. That's the cool thing with Stats Race Lens. Very easily, you could just kind of click on each horse and watch, any prior race that you want. So I ended up watching a lot of replays because I wasn't familiar with a number of these horses, including One Timer, the 2-horse. So this horse is interesting. Ships in for Larry Ravelli, as we know. Arlington Park just closed its doors last weekend. So Larry Ravelli here bringing one of his more promising horses, 2-year-old One Timer, out to Santa Anita for this 5-furlong race. An easy winner in 2 starts over the all-weather, first at Arlington, then at Woodbine. And I just thought that when you take a look at this one, the debut race earned a 100 Equibase speed figure, which is the really small number circled in green down there. That circle around there indicates that's the best number for this race of any horse. And it's not just that the horse ran really fast and did crazy splits. It's who the horse beat. And you don't always find this with 2-year-old, horses and races where you could say, hey, that's a key race already. But there's an easy way to check, at least for some perspective, who One Timer might have been going up against. And so you click on the left side there where the race date is, and it pulls up the chart for you. And when we pull up this chart, you'll see sort of a nifty little tool here. Equibase and Stats Race Lens circles the horses who were in the race who came back and won their next start. And so you can see the horse who finished second there has a green circle around their name. And if you click that horse's name, you'll see that Tough to Tame, the runner-up from that race, came back and not only won the next race. You can also see that in the horse's most recent race, they finished second, just a head behind in the Iroquois. And so back-to-back wins after being defeated by One Timer and then coming back and finishing second in the Iroquois, obviously pretty impressive. And it's not that One Timer just beat Tough to Tame. He absolutely sort of romped, and it wasn't even close. And so for perspective, obviously what Tough to Tame has done since then flatters One Timer in a big way. And then it's not only Tough to Tame. If you look at the horse who finished fourth in this race, also a circle around that horse's name, American Sanctuary, came back to win next out by 8+ lengths. So broke the maiden there, and then you can see in the 2 starts since has finished second in stakes races, including a second last out in the Sapling. So flattered by the company on that debut race, shipping in with a ton of speed and the inside draw. I think One Timer could potentially be pretty dangerous here. My one concern with One Timer is that I do see a lot of speed in this race. You've got the horse to his inside, Rock the Bells. Another horse with a lot of gate speed, Edwin Maldonado aboard, so that horse will send. They'll send that horse. You've got Miss Alacrity coming in for Wesley Ward, another one with speed, but who could potentially sit off just a bit. And the horse Way to the Outside, Time to Party, another one who's shown nothing but speed in 2 starts. And so it's just a question of whether One Timer is faster, which I think he is, and then whether he can sustain that speed. Christina, I believe you had some thoughts on this race as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan, with regard to One Timer for all the reasons that you laid out. So he is going to be my top pick, but I did have just a couple little notes on a few other horses. The 4 Forbidden Kingdom. I'm really interested in this son of American Pharoah. He won first time out for Richard Mandela. And Mandela is one of those that I personally find does a little better on the turf first time out rather than on the main track. And with this colt, he outgamed 2 Bob Baffert horses that were very highly regarded. One of them was Rhetoric, and they were on either side of him as they came for home. I've been watching his works. Richard has put him behind horses in the morning, and he doesn't seem to like the kickback at all. I'm just looking at him kind of in the mornings, not very comfortable. He was able to be on the front end in that debut race on the dirt. I think part of the reason they're switching him to the turf is because of the way he's been training a little bit in the mornings. but he's naturally fast enough to compete. He clearly has the class. His dam was very precocious. She was a sprinter. She has produced another turf sprint winner already. So I think it's there for Forbidden Kingdom to take to the surface. And then just to the outside, you kind of touched on Time to Party. He reminds me a lot of Bulletin. If you remember him from Todd Pletcher's barn a couple years ago, a horse that won the juvenile turf sprint as well. Just so in control, so fast, so compact. Time to Party hasn't quite run as fast as One Timer yet, but I think there's a lot more talent there that they're just kind of scratching the surface with him.
You mentioned highly regarded Bob Baffert horses. I think that's a perfect segue to the next race, race 6 on Friday, the Chandelier Stakes, mile and a 16th. Part of the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series. The winner here gets an automatic ticket to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. A lot of win and you're in races this weekend, big implications for the Breeders' Cup. So if you're handicapping ahead, you want to take note of all these races that we're about to dig into. So let's start with the Chandelier Stakes. And Christina, back to you.
Let's start with Grace Adler. How about that? Let's go to the 4-horse. She is the 9-5 morning line choice. She was the winner of the Del Mar Debutante. I want to pick this replay up from the Del Mar Debutante, about the half-mile pole, because the race had so much speed going into it. And I don't want to take anything away from Grace Adler, but she could not have drawn it up any more perfectly in terms of the pace scenario. She had several horses kind of dueling up front, right in front of her. And she's a big daughter of Curlin. She's out of a Newfoundland mare. You can see as we're on the replay here, she's kind of, you have that whole first chunk of horses up front. She's sitting back in that 5th spot right now, kind of catbird seat, and just watching all of that develop in front of her. As the horses up front start to come back a little bit, the pace collapses. She's able to circle them, go wide, and pull clear very impressively. I don't discount how good she is. And I think that we are going to have quite a bit of speed in the Chandelier coming up again this weekend. But I just want to kind of take this performance from Grace Adler and maybe not be as overly excited about it as initially I was when I was there live on track, kind of watching her run. As far as some of the other horses in here too, I know that Electric Ride, the one, is going to get a lot of attention. She was a TDN Rising Star first time out. She was a gate to wire winner. Joe Bravo was aboard. He's going to be back up. She was 8.5 lengths clear. I think she's going to end up being a one-turn horse overall. Watching the way she runs, looking at her, she's a little more shorter coupled. She's compact. She is a daughter of Daredevil, so the pedigree is there to stretch out, but I just don't know if it's in the cards for her. So I think you're going to see speed with her. You're going to see some speed from the 3, Dance to the Music. You'll see some speed from the 6, Elm Drive, who was one of the horses that was kind of cooked in that early pace duel in the Del Mar Debutante last out. So Juan Hernandez basically wrapped up on her when he knew she wasn't going to win, kind of took care of her. So she gets a chance to come back and see how she can perform if she's able to relax a little bit off that pace. She's drawn better coming up for Saturday, or Friday. Censorship is going to be the horse that I'm going to choose on top though, the 7, the other Bob Baffert in here. And I want to take a look at the replay of her last race. She's a maiden. So I'm talking about a maiden taking on these grade 2 horses this weekend. Watch her coming out of the starting gate. She breaks from post position number 2 and she stumbles so hard. I thought she was going to flip completely forward down to her nose. You can see her there and just barely able to recover in the end. We can kind of shuttle forward a little bit as far as the replay goes now, because you can see she is so far back and she's going to end up kind of moving along the rail there, establishing a tactical position for herself. She will be second as they cross the wire in this particular race. But I think if you consider that stumble, if you consider how difficult the beginning was and just how far back she was in the early stages of this race. And then right here, she's already made that middle move. Now she's going to angle to the outside. She has to overtake the top 2 horses at this stage. And she's run her race and then some already as they turn for home here at the quarter pole. I'm really impressed by what this filly was able to do. She's a daughter of Tonalist. This was her first attempt around 2 turns. And I don't think she really lost anything in defeat. And I think Bob Baffert is pretty high on her ability. And he's got her in this race because he thinks that she is of this caliber. She is of this class. And she deserves a chance to earn her way into the Breeders' Cup as well. The stat that I pulled for this, and you can just watch her kind of grind it out there. She did all she could do to finish second to Desert Dawn. The stat I pulled was with regard to Bob Baffert and John Velasquez. Johnny V has been flying to the West Coast quite a lot these days for Bob Baffert. And if you just filter them in terms of the graded stakes races, I mean, I knew it was high, but 14 for 31 when these two team up, 45% win rate, 68% in the money. You're not getting a whole lot of money back because these horses are getting bet. Median win payout is $3.80. But I think on this filly, Dan, you will get every bit of a price. Everyone's going to be on Grace Adler. She could win. I'm not saying she can't, but I'm going to be wagering on Censorship, the other Baffert, for a price.
I like it. I like going with the bigger price. I also like the inside of, maybe fading. I think it's as helpful as anything to say, hey, look, 3-1 the morning ride, that's going to take money. And your input and your stance on it, that you think that she might end up just being a sprinter. And I think that's helpful insight in and of itself. So this should be an interesting race. Looking forward to seeing the Chandelier on Friday. Ellis, we're going to give you an opportunity to speak. I promise. It's coming right now. Are you ready? Clear the throat. Race 7, the Eddy D Stakes. We talked about it. The Hillside Turf Course is back in play. Who are you going with, Ellis?
Well, first of all, a couple things about Stats Racelands. You could set up all kinds of templates for this. I have one here. Our producer set up just for turf. You can also do it within a half a length. And when you look at a horse, let's go to Stafford Sinclair on the outside and look at his career record. He's got 33 races, 7 wins. Look at his turf record. His turf record is 4-2-1 for 10. His overall record is 7-8-4. That means he's 4 for 10 on grass and 3 for 23 on dirt. I mean, he started his career, we got the setup for turf, but the other lines are still there, grayed out. So let's go all the way to the bottom. As our producer told me, there's a million lines here, and there's actually 33. But in any event, you could do this and set up lifetime PPs, go all the way down to the bottom, and you'll see, if you recall this horse, he started out on the grass. He won first time out, second time out, Saratoga. Beat Guido, came back to win, came back, won the Showcase Juvenile, Kentucky Downs, 7 furlongs on the grass in a field of 9. Came back, ran the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, horrible. Okay, they said, let's try him on dirt. You can see it's grayed out. 3rd in Lecomte, 2nd in the Ellis Starr, beating the nose to Bravazzo. Then 5th in the Louisiana Derby. Then they said, let's just take a break. And he came back and ran on grass and ran on dirt. Look, he ran well. He was 2nd in the Essex. Then they put him on turf in the Tourist Mile. This is what I really want to talk about. Mile on the grass, not graded, but $750,000. Last year, he wins 10-1. Comes back, put him back on dirt again. He's okay. Put him back on turf. Look at these 3 races. He runs at Churchill Downs in June. He run last year. Then he runs 2nd the Tourist Mile again, this time to Flavius for Chad Brown. Then 3rd. Then another layoff. He shifts him to Dubai. He runs in the Godolphin Mile, which is on dirt. Runs lousy. Takes a month off. It usually takes a lot longer to recover. 2nd in the Open Universe overnight at Churchill, the set piece who comes back to win, because you can see the italics there. And then he wins the TVG Stakes, $400,000, field of 6, wire to wire. He can come from off the pace. He can go to the lead. There's very few horses. As you can see here, by the way, one of the other features of Stats Racing is you can highlight lines. So I wanted to highlight those turf races, even though they're already there, the ones that I think are representative. That 114 Equibase speed figure, which is highlighted yellow, but it's actually circled in green if the row is regular. That's a 114. It's 113. Very consistent Equibase speed figures, a little low in the TVG, but he was coming back from 4.5 months off. So I get it. We'll talk about, again, those figures with competitors. And then look at Rosario, last 30 days, 25% wins. Of course, he's got a lot of favorites. As you remember at Kentucky Downs, Rosario was one of the few jockeys that decided that the inside was the right place to be, and he won so many races. Then he went to Saratoga and he won more races. Now he's coming out here. I mean, Snapper Sinclair just is consistent. He has the figures on grass. I love the cutback from a mile to 6.5 furlongs down the hill. And he's got an outside post, which is always good. I'm sure Christina can comment. The inside does okay, but the outside's better because you take a right-hand turn out of the gate, and that puts the outside horses in a great position as they swing back around, as the inside horses kind of have to rush up and find position. Outside has all the time in the world. So he fits on all levels. Quickly talking about some of the other contenders. Number 7, Lieutenant Dan. Boy, as consistent as they come. 7 good finishes in a row. First, second, third, first. Excellent, excellent recent races. He's never raced down the hill. He's won at 5. But if you go down all the way to his early in his career, you see he got beat a couple of heads in the Silky Sullivan in a mile. So I don't think 6.5 is out of his range at all. Definitely has a shot there. Charmine's Mia, the 4, the only female in the race, won the Las Ciénegas Stakes at 6 furlongs on the flat. Back there, that line again, that green highlight to kind of point you to races that you want to look at. A 113 figure. Lieutenant Dan, real quick, go back to Lieutenant Dan. I forgot to say to talk about that 7 furlong. I'm not sorry, that win at 5 furlongs. 118 echo base speed figure, and then the green flash was a little lower, but he's certainly capable. And then quick with the 1 Gregorian Chant won the San Simeon Stakes at 6 furlongs on the flat with the 104, then a 117, having faster in the classified allowance race after that. Did run third, Lieutenant Dan at 5 furlongs, but I think he likes a longer distance. So my main win bet's going to be Snapper Sinclair, and I'm going to mess around with exactly Snapper Sinclair, first and second with these other horses I talked about in the Eddy D Stakes.
So like Snapper Sinclair, 6 years old now, not old for this field though. It actually right about the middle, right? Not young, in middle, sort of middle-aged. Christina, what do you think? Snapper Sinclair, I like the argument that Ellis made. Who you got here?
Yeah, I like where Ellis is going with Snapper Sinclair for sure. I just had a couple of quick notes. I think the one, because we're right on Gregorian Chant right now, this is a horse that is going to absolutely love the downhill turf course. When they cut him back, going back to November 27th, where he was going 1.5 miles in the Hollywood Turf Cup, then they cut him back to the 6 furlongs in the Clocker's Corner on January the 24th of this year. It was a dramatic change. He was 10-1 that day. But it was just brilliant management, I thought, from Slam Dunk Racing, Nick Casado making this drastic change. And he's a wonderful, late running turf sprinter at this point in his career at 5 years old. But in all those races at Santa Anita that you can see where he's winning, he's kind of just getting there. I mean, he is flying to the finish and barely getting there at the 6 furlongs. His most recent race, at Green Flash at Del Mar, I think you can give him a real pass for it. And it wasn't a bad race at all. He was third. But we found this summer at Del Mar that the inside post positions, post 1 and post 2, accounted for nearly 50% of the winners of all turf sprints at that 5 furlong distance. It's a huge advantage. And he was drawn all the way outside. He was in post 8. The 5 furlongs is too short for him. I think there was a lot working against Gregorian Chant last out, whereas the added distance and being able to come down the hill on Friday is really going to work in his favor. And then the other horse that I'm just kind of interested in is the 8, Whisper Not. Whisper Not is a horse that's always been really, really talented, but he's also a horse that has been his own worst enemy. He's aggressive. He jumps into the bridle. He runs off with his rider pretty often. And because of that, he kind of fizzles late. When you get a horse like this and you start sending him downhill, he's naturally going to come back a little bit himself. The rider, Johnny V, is going to be able to just give him a little bit of a looser rein, give him his head. He might be more comfortable and able to finish his races much better coming down the hill than he can around a traditional 2-turn flat course.
All right, one more race on Friday. It's going to be the American Pharoah Stakes, race 8. Another win and you're in. This one for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Look, there's 7 horses in this race. 3 of them for Bob Baffert, including the one you see on your screen right now. Corniche will probably go off as the favorite. We've also got the 6-horse Rockefeller for Baffert and the 2-horse Flying Drummer, a bit of an outsider. Want to take a look as we start to focus on this race at the True Odds page and the race projection here, because, again, this is where, I mentioned at the start with some of these horses, you may not be familiar with all of them, and you might be wondering, what's their running style? Who's going to be on the lead? How are they going to run this and that? So if you go to the True Odds page there on the top right, just to take a look at the race projection, you can see the horse that's being projected here to be on the lead is the 6, Rockefeller. And I wouldn't mind that. I think the horse has got a ton of speed and I think is really well drawn for this spot. And namely, and specifically because when I took a look back at how Rockefeller ran on debut last out, I was impressed by something I saw. And we'll hop back into the PPs and take a look at just the start of that race, pretty much the first quarter mile of that race. 2-year-olds oftentimes breaking on the inside, a bit challenging. And so take a look down at the rail at Rockefeller. Start of this maiden race. He'll be the 2-horse once this circle loads. There we go. So he's the 2-horse. He'll be on the rail. You'll see he doesn't get away terribly, but he doesn't break on the lead. So he's rushed up here because they're trying to obviously maintain that rail position. It's rushed up. Almost there. Okay. Just about even there for the lead, and will ultimately establish himself up front. And so there's exertion there. I mean, there's effort there. There's work there to get to the front. And then, take our word for it, the horse finishes up pretty well, ends up winning by 2 1/4 lengths, geared down. We don't even need to watch the rest of this. He wins the thing, and he does it pretty easily. Now, when we talk about Corniche, that's a horse that broke from the outside with a lot of speed and was able to sort of dictate the race from the outset, was able to kind of clear to the lead, coast, get to the front, settle down. And I'm not taking anything away. Again, you see that circled green there, the Equibase speed figure there, the best in this race. Corniche is going to go off as your favorite, and certainly visually was the most impressive on debut and more impressive. But he broke from the outside there. Now breaks from the inside with at least 2 or 3 other horses outside of him who have speed. Not that I expect, Flying Drummer, who's one of the Bafferts, or Rockefeller to go with it, but Joker Boy is one who's got some speed and could potentially put the pressure on. So I don't think things are going to be go as smoothly for Corniche as they did on debut. Now, the one other thing I want to mention about Rockefeller, and the cool thing for me, and I've admitted it many times before, I'm pedigree ignorant generally. I don't retain pedigree information like some of my good friends, including Ren Carruthers, who's like an encyclopedia when it comes to pedigree. So I always have to use these searches, and you could search sires and dams. So if you click on the sire right there, you could customize searches. And so one of the customized searches that we did ahead of time here was for the past 5 years looking at Medaglia d'Oro, and you could specify an exact distance. And the exact distance I wanted to look at was 1 1/16 races for 2-year-olds only 2-year-olds at 1 1/16 in graded stakes races. And you can see there are 12 runners, 8 of 12 of them have hit the board. 3 of them have won. And if you look at some of the horses there, Bolt d'Oro, Anador, is in there. I think remember a couple of years ago, Anador, I'm still bragging about picking Anador, even though Anador didn't win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, finished second at a big price. And it was these kinds of searches that honestly helped me and continue to help me. And so I think from a pedigree perspective, there's a lot to like here. And again, this is sort of an oversimplified view of this horse's pedigree in particular, but Medaglia d'Oro here, obviously a positive influence for 2-year-olds going around the ground. And so that's backed up there. I will say, Christina, I did see a note coming from you last night that also made me perk up a little bit more. Why don't you share that with the people watching about Rockefeller and how he's been working?
Yeah, definitely. And anybody can go and search and find this if they're interested. Over at XB TV, they shoot all the works pretty much across the country, and they have quite a few here at Santa Anita, as of course they're based here. And just last week, these two worked to get together, Corniche and Rockefeller. You don't have to be an expert in watching works to see Rockefeller outworked Corniche last week. And so I'm with you, Dan, in terms of taking, again, the bigger price of the 2 Baffert runners in the juvenile races coming up on Friday. I love the way Rockefeller is coming into it. And I think that he has definitely the opportunity not only to beat his stablemate, but to defeat all of them. Love it.
Love it. All right, we're going to move to Saturday. We're going to stay at Santa Anita, but we're going to move to the Saturday card. 3 more win and you're in races for the Breeders' Cup. The Breeders' Cup Sprint is the first division that they'll be running in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship, race 8 on Saturday. This is a fun race, a smaller field, but I think a bit of a puzzle if you're trying to figure out how this race is going to unfold from a pace perspective. Ellis, I know you've got some thoughts on how it might shape up.
Well, let's start by looking at the PPs for number 2 vertical threat. And so you look down the PPs and you get a quick sense of who likes to run where. And you'll notice the vertical threat, you see wire to wire in the Russell Road at Charlestown, wire to wire in Steel Valley Sprint, nearly wire to wire in the Smiling Tiger, and wire to wire in his first dirt race, which is second career start last June. So now I want to see, and we don't need to do this. You look at all the 6 horses, and you say there's really not any of the horses that have that many wire to wire wins. For those that don't know, I call them picket fences, because if you go to the right from the races they won, you back up to the left, it's called a picket fence. You see a bunch of ones, it looks like a picket fence, and there's really no other horse in the race that has even 1, and this horse has 2. So now I go to the pace, go to True Odds, and we'll look at the pace projector. And one thing I did was, when we go to the True Odds page, I made a change because I know he's going to be on the lead. So one of the cool things you can do is you go to just win probability factors. I did 2 things. I only wanted an emphasis on distance, which is 6 furlongs, could be a half furlong either direction, and on pace. And then you do this temporarily, you hit apply, you set everything else to 0, and you see what happens. And what happens is vertical threat, this doesn't affect the pace projector. Vertical threat is already projected to be in front by about a length and a half after Dr. Shivel or Shivel, whichever you want to say. And it shows that the second half, Dr. Shivel takes over, but I don't think so. What's most important here is taking all the factors in. When you look at the win percentage, either looking at the pace projector on the right, or when you sort on adjusted True Odds, which we can do real quick, you'll see it sorted. It's 2 to 1. That 33% on vertical threat means the fair odds are going to be 2 to 1. And I haven't seen the morning line yet; it's coming out later, but I guarantee it's not 2 to 1. So you got a horse that looks like the lone speed. Projector says yes. If you project to pace and the record, which we'll get back to in a second, it's a yes. And I think vertical threat almost stands out here, even though this is a heck of a field. Let's go back to the PPs, and we'll look real quick at those races a little closer. Last year, the Steel Valley Sprint, which was really his breakout race, where he got a 118 equibase speed figure. He also, don't forget, this horse is shipping around. Debuts at Santa Anita, runs at Los Alamitos, runs at Del Mar, wins that Calbred race, the Smiling Tiger, not Calbred race, restricted race, wins the, goes to a mile, doesn't run well, wins the Steel Valley Sprint by 7.5 with a 118, comes back at the Bing Crosby, no idea what happened, but then redeems himself in the Russell Road. And so what you notice here is a horse that when he gets the lead, because that's what didn't happen to Bing Crosby, he just gets brave. And that 118 tells you how brave and how fast he can get when he gets brave. Now I want to compare him to the other contenders in the race. We'll go down to CZ Rocket, the 4 horse. And when CZ Rocket, again, if you look at, I don't know if we had this race highlight yet, last year's Santa Anita Sprint Championship, first he won the Pat O'Brien, and then he won this race. That's a 117. That's a career best speed figure for CZ Rocket. May have lost a step this year, I can't say, but he's on the same pattern. He didn't win the Pat O'Brien this year, but he was flying late, maybe a little further back than he usually likes to be, and Gina Billy's not in this race. So essentially, he's the best horse here. But that 117 will give you a perspective on CZ Rocket. Then go down one horse to the 5 Flagstaff. And Flagstaff, again, it's an identical pattern. Flagstaff last year, second in the Pat O'Brien to CZ Rocket, made the lead in that race at 7 furlongs, cut back to 6, and led from start to finish, and then got beat ahead. Now, he's not going to lead from start to finish, but he doesn't need to, because when you go up to his race on May 21st, you'll see that Churchill Downs Stakes, a grade 1 on Derby weekend with a 98 figure, came from off the pace. Then he ran the 2 North at Belmont to, I call him a buzzsaw for Inspire. I don't mean just the way he runs. I mean also trying to take bites out of horses. And then, of course, in the Pat O'Brien this year, he faded a little bit, but he'd been off 4 months, almost 5 months if you think about it. So Flagstaff's the other contender. I think Vertical Threat can take these coast to coast. I think CZ Rocket and Flagstaff are 2 more I got to use in pick 3s, 4s, and 5s. But I'm really looking forward to this race, because if Abel Cedillo listens to me, he'll send him, and that'll be the end of it.
Ellis just clicked through 2/3 of the field and didn't mention the horse I like. I'm getting a little concerned. Christina, who do you like? And if you don't mention my horse, I may just like leave right now.
I like what Ellis had to say about Vertical Threat, because I think they've managed him pretty conservatively. And I think if you look, sometimes when he steps into that top class competition, he has appeared to be maybe a cut below, but this race really sets up well for him to go home with his own graded stakes victory. To Ellis's point, there's kind of a surprising lack of early speed for a sprint race. I think Dr. Scheibel from the Inside Post is going to be naturally a little bit closer because of that lack of speed. Originally, as I started handicapping the race, I thought, oh, geez, I don't like the Inside Post for him. I think this is going to be a tough spot. But now, to Ellis's point, I don't think there are going to be very many horses up there on the front end. I think he's going to sit just behind Vertical Threat. He's on a 4-race win streak. He has that class, and Flavien Prat is just such a strong finisher. I feel like I talk about it every weekend on TVG. I mean, this guy, if you don't follow him on Instagram, you should. And if you don't follow his personal trainer, you should, because he shows the kind of ridiculous workouts that he goes through. He is so strong. I think the two of them have the class and the strength to maybe overtake Vertical Threat in the late stages.
You mentioned the lack of speed. I mean, it's something that kind of stands out a little bit. So maybe Cold Fiction to the outside of Vertical Threat could present a little bit of a challenge. But then it also kind of drew my attention to the 6-horse Collusion Illusion. So you did not mention my horse, Christina. So now I've got to start and make the whole case. So yeah, blinkers on. First time for Collusion Illusion. So the first thing I would do is, as you're looking at the past performances here and you see that really, really bad race passed out, you put a line through it, because as you can see by that little green blur on the left side there, that was a turf race. And so this horse is not a turf horse. He is a dirt sprinter, and he is back to his preferred distance of 6 furlongs. Which he's won 3 of 5 races at this distance. The only race where he did not factor at all was in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year with excuses. So I'm willing to forgive that as well. And then if you go to the race before that, it's the Santa Anita Sprint Championship last year, where he finished 3rd, beaten only by CZ Rocket and Flagstaff, and then Flagstaff was later DQ'd. And so you look at those 6 furlong efforts, though, the green and the yellow there, the 2 best career Equibase speed figures, again, 6 furlongs on the dirt at Santa Anita and the Santa Anita Sprint Championship last year, at top effort there. I love all of that. The other thing I liked, and I mentioned the blinkers going on, customize these searches here to look for, is there an edge you can get from one trainer over another, whether it's adding equipment, removing equipment, trainer research here from Mark Glatt, showing that in the past 3 years, first time with the blinkers on, 43 starts, 11 wins. 11 wins from 43 starts. That is really darn good. 26%. And then you could see the in the money clip there, 53%, 26 horses in the money, and a positive ROI. Really nice numbers there for an equipment change, for blinkers going on. So again, it's a small thing, but I think when you look at pace dynamics here, and the lack of any sort of tearaway speed, with the exception potentially of Vertical Threat. Although my only concern with Vertical Threat, and Ellis, don't get mad at me, I mean, the horses' wins have come at Charlestown, Mahoning Valley, and Los Al, and those are, tracks that are constructed a particular way. And anytime he's really stepped up into company where he's running with great stakes runners, he just hasn't done it. And to your point, I think Vertical Threat has had excuses, specifically in Bing Crosby wasn't on the lead, and that's where he needs to be. So we'll see. I think he's an interesting horse, and I think you're going to get a price, maybe a little bit better price than some of these others we've talked about. But Collusion Illusion for me. Ellis, you want to rebut?
I have a question for Christina, actually, because she might know the answer, and fans out there. When you look at Collusion Illusion and you see that race off a layoff 8 months, this horse is what we call out of conditions, because he'd already been a stakes winner, grade 1. He can't run in any allowance races except classified. And I'm just thinking the problem was maybe they just kept trying to get him in a dirt race. They needed to get him in some race, and that's the one that filled that he got in. Christina, do you have any insight on that?
I think he had actually been entered a couple once or twice and scratched. I think they've had a hard time keeping him sound. I think that's part of the issue with Collusion Illusion. And then as a son of Twirling Candy, I think they at that point thought, well, he's good now. His feet are good. Everything about him is sort of 100%. And that was the race that came up. And with his pedigree, considering, well, let's see if it works, because if it does on the grass, then we open up some doors for maybe what happens in the future. I think it was more a lack or more a case of a lack of soundness, and then just being ready at that time, and that the race being
And I have
available.
one more. So there's one more thing is the age-old pattern here. Everybody look at Collusion Illusion, you see blinkers on. And then if our producer will scroll down to the workout, the last workout was phenomenal. It was the best of 67 on the day. You'll wonder two things. First of all, blinkers on in a fast workout is indicative of a horse who's going to run big. But the second question is, blinkers on in a fast workout might be indicative of a horse that might show speed. Is there any chance, you think, either of you, that he's going to show speed with blinkers, or is that for another reason?
I mean, I definitely do. I mean, Christina, I mean, I think he'll be more forwardly placed. I don't think he's fast enough to go early with vertical threat and to hang around. So I think I could see him in a just sort of right at sort of the hip, or maybe a length off of vertical threat.
Yeah, I could see the same thing. I don't think he'll be on the lead necessarily, but he's been closer to the pace, you know, if you go back to his 3-year-old year, so maybe a little bit closer. But then there's also the sort of complication of his stablemate being drawn at the rail. He doesn't want to go up there and engage his stablemate and have the two of them pressing vertical threat. So I think Juan Hernandez is going to have to try and be a little bit more patient with him.
Well, with that said, I mean, since you pointed out the stablemate's down on the rail and the one who seems to be the better horse at this moment, I mean, is the play then that Collusion Illusion is the, is the presser and the one that's sort of given up here in an effort to get Dr. Scheibel the win?
Maybe. I mean, I hadn't thought about it until you say it now. And I think, Mark Glatt putting Flavien Prat and keeping Flavien on Dr. Scheibel is pretty clear. That's the horse that he thinks is going better right now, for sure.
Yeah, good point. Pratt had previously ridden Collusion Illusion in just about his last 7 or 8 races. So obviously opting for Dr. Scheibel here. Maybe a little bit of a tip, a little bit of a tell. Let's move on to race 9, the Rodeo Drive. Another winning your in race here. This one for the Maker's Mark Filly and Mare Turf. Very fun race. Ellis, I'll let you kick this one off. What do you think?
Let's go to the 8 Luck and look at the last race. This was the filly's debut in the U.S. She'd been off since May, shipped into the Balsas barn for LNJ Fox, who will also have dog tag. We'll talk a minute. And we'll go to the video. We'll skip to about the 130 mark. Now, she did check early. I don't think that really mattered. Let's go about the 130. And you'll see at this point in the traditional LNG silks of blue, she's in between. She's made a move right there in the yellow hat. She's mid-race. And then when she gets this clear and gets to level off and show something, you will see that Rispoli, who rode her then, does not ever take the crop off the reins. He shakes the reins at her and she just explodes. I mean, this filly was just like a spring ready to be sprung. Surge clear is the comment, fantastic. Now let's go back to her PPs, and you go back to her race in April, which came off a 4-month layoff back at Chantilly. And in that race in April, she at 1 mile and 3/16 on all weather, she led the final furlong easily. It doesn't say how she ran, but she came from off the pace apparently. If she led the last furlong, same thing. And then she ran poorly, and then she came to the U.S. and she is running on Lasix right now, and that was the key to her running well again. She's also flattered. You see the italics because the runner-up, England's Rose, came back to win her next start as well. And then we'll go to the true odds, and because this is on grass, late pace, not like the San Diego Sprint Championship, early pace is important, late pace, and we'll sort on late pace and look at that edge. 8 points, 7.5 point edge in late pace in this field. She doesn't project that well in the percentages, but based on what I just saw, based on second off a layoff, let's go back to the PPs again, a couple more things to talk about. Richard Balch has 2 horses in this race. He's got the 4 going to Vegas, which I'm sure one of you will talk about and I can mention, but he's got the 8 Luck. And look, again, Rispoli rode Luck last time out, and Pratt is getting on today. And you look at Baltus and Pratt, and you see 32% wins over the last 2 years in turf routes. Let's go back to the PPs and just real quick going to Vegas, and you'll see that Pratt rode going to Vegas in the Grade 2 John C. Mabie Stakes. I don't know all the ins and outs. Christina may be able to comment, but without knowing anything, just assuming for a second, I don't think Baltus is going to tell Pratt, get off a Grade 2 winner to ride an allowance horse. I think Pratt, the top jockey on the circuit, is going to make the choice and say, his agent is going to say, I want to ride Luck over going to Vegas. And that just says a ton to me. Just really fantastic. So you got that great win percentage, everything else. So let's go to the one real quick. Dog tag, the other L&J Foxwoods horse. I think they're going to run 1-2 here. And I hope I don't jinx them by saying that, which I've been known to do. But look at that record at Santa Anita, 5 races, 2 wins, 3 seconds. The last race, when you go to the 1 dog tag, the maybe second, go down 2 to the possibly perfect. The 1.25 miles gets beat ahead after leading by 2.5 with Rispoli up. This time gets dog tag because Rispoli's riding going to Vegas. Go back again to the possibly perfect last year, 1.25 miles, Santa Anita, June 14, 2020, wins 1.25 miles. 1.25 miles, couple races, a win in the second, in form, 4 seconds in a row. Again, Luck's got the best kick. Dog tag is the most consistent, I think, at the distance and on the grass. I think you got L&J exactly here.
You know, I don't know how much stock to put into the jockey movement in turf routes at Santa Anita, because invariably every graded stakes race is going to feature 80% of the horses in it who've won previously with Rispoli or Prado, because they win 80% of turf graded stakes races. And so they've been on all these horses. So I don't know what to make of it exactly. Christina, how do you make heads or tails of it?
I think let's go back to Luck, because I did this exact same thought process back and forth between Luck and going to Vegas myself. And I think Ellis is correct. I think that they have put Flavia and Pratt aboard thinking that this is the better filly. And I do think she's grade 1 caliber, honestly. Like, I was there watching that race with my own eyes on August 7th. She was devastatingly good in that allowance race. She's a daughter of Kitten's Joy, but she's out of the mare by the name of Gold Round. Gold Round is out of the mare by the name of Born Gold, who is also the dam of Goldacova. So her dam is a half to Goldacova. This is a world-class family that she hails from. And I also find it interesting. You talk about the jockeys, so you can see Rispoli aboard in that last race. Look down below, 2 and 3 starts back. Gerald Mossy, that's Umberto Rispoli's father-in-law. That's Kimberly Mossy's dad. So he was able to talk to his father-in-law a little bit about this filly coming into that race. And I know he has, because we kind of chatted about it after the fact. But here's the thing that worries me. She ran on Lasix in that allowance race because she could. She came to the States after a poor race in France. There's plenty of good races in France. I'm reading between the lines, but thinking that she might have come here because she needed the Lasix. And she doesn't get to run on it this weekend because this is a win in urine event for the Breeders' Cup. So that ultimately was what tipped the scale for me. I'm going to pick going to Vegas, the other Baltus. And let's go to her past performances. She's the number 4 in here. Rispoli has some experience with her as well. If you look back to that March 27th race, Umberto was aboard, and it's in the Santa Ana. We're also going 1.25 miles, exact same distance that we're going to be competing coming up this weekend. And look at the tactics there. I know they didn't go all that quickly, but he did have her on the lead. And Luck is going to drop all the way back. If we go back to the True Odds page one more time, talking about, again, the pace scenario, and I think Ellis is correct. I don't think that trouble really dictated the style for Luck last time out. And again, filter for late pace. Luck is the fastest on late pace, but going to Vegas is right there behind her. And I think Going to Vegas is going to be on the lead. And I think she's very, very classy. If we can watch the replay from the John Mabey last time out, back to her past performances one more time. This is September the 4th. It's going 1 1/8 miles at Santa Anita. We can just take it from the quarter pole home. We know that she can finish at the mile and a quarter. We know that she can get this distance. But I think one of the things that's so remarkable about this filly is not only does she set a good tempo up front, but she finishes like a closer. She's just as sort of explosive late as a horse like Luck, who was far back off the pace and able to kind of conserve all of that energy. I do think that Luck is probably the better horse if you match them up evenly. But I think as far as the pace, I think Going to Vegas could be right up there. And watch her finish here. I mean, she's every bit as strong. They both have that same kind of ability to lower their body and really stick their necks out. They use themselves so well. I mean, Richard Baltis has a powerful 1-2 punch coming into this race. I did pull a stat with regard to her sire, to Golden Sense, and I was really surprised by this. I didn't expect to get this kind of a result when I was filtering for this information. So we're talking about horses on the turf. And then again, I went to that same filter that Dan used before, user defined minimum maximum distances. I went from 9 furlongs up to 12 furlongs. I just want to see how the Golden Sense horses do on the grass. Going a little farther, we're 8 for 20. And I know she's part of that stat, but 40%, 55% in the money, huge ROI, $12 and change median win payout. She's going to be the bigger price of the two Baltis horses. And I think she gets the better trip, Dan. So I'm going to lean her way, but I did the same thought process of Ellis. I went back and forth between these two. The Lasix, the tactics was what pushed me to Going to Vegas.
You could find a lot of information on Stats Racelands, and what you can't find, you might be able to find through a relationship with the jockey's wife. So thank you, Christina, for giving us all of that behind the scenes insight. Super helpful. I'm going to go back to another 6 horse and another horse get blinkers for the first time, or actually for the second time. It's going to be Cristal, the 6 horse here, blinkers on. And a couple of things I like here. I'll just say, you guys, I'm totally with you with your selections, with Luck and with Going to Vegas. I thought Cristal might potentially offer just a little more value here. 2 races after switching over to Peter Miller. She's now posted a career best by equity-based speed figure there of 99 last out. So obviously the improvement fast and significant. When you look at the last race there, I do want to take a look back just at the stretch run as they're turning for home. It's the CTT TOC stakes. That's one for that's what we're getting tripped up. The CTT TOC stakes was sitting off a really, really slow pace. Cristal's the 2 horse in the pink silks when this video picks up. And you'll see as they turn for home, she's just going to have a wall of horses in front of her. And I think she had some run. Look, she got dismissed that day. Obviously, big odds, 21-1. So potentially overlooked there and maybe overlooked here. Because the video is, a little at the moment, I would say go back and just watch this race when you get a chance. You'll see that Cristal does run into a pretty significant amount of traffic. Okay, now it's picking up a little bit. So keep an eye on the 2 horse if you can in those pink silks in behind all those other horses. You're going to see she's going to pretty much get lost back there, trying to shift out there. Still no, nope, nothing there, nothing doing. Cannot find it, and then just gets a little bit of running room late, but by then it's already over. So I think if you're looking for an interesting trip and a horse to bet back off a bad trip, I think Cristal is an interesting one. She does have some back class as a 2-year-old, won the PG Johnson, finished 2nd in the Miss Grillo Stakes. So has the back class, is in a barn now that's been known to get rapid and dramatic improvement out of horses, especially horses with back class. So for me, Cristal, I think, is a little bit of a sneaky play here and is going to get overlooked when you look at the likes of Luck and Going to Vegas and Dog Tag, who I think will also take a decent amount of money. All right, let's wrap the Saturday action at Santa Anita with the Awesome Again Stakes, the big one on the card, winning your end for the Classic. Big names in race 10 here on Saturday. Christina, there are a number of sort of locals that we've seen return. We've seen kind of take turns beating each other. The Tripoli's of the world, Tis a Magician, Idol, Express Train. And then you've also got, the sort of wild card here, Medina Spirit showing up here. So you got the 3-year-old taking on the older horses. Where did you land here?
Well, I'm interested to see just, how Medina Spirit performs in terms of using him as a benchmark for some of the other 3-year-olds. We haven't seen them kind of step into older company just yet. So I think we can kind of pull a lot from his performance after this weekend and consider that with, the Hot Rod Charlies and the essential qualities that we're looking forward to seeing taking on older horses in the Breeders' Cup. I think he's going to be on the lead, the 5, Medina Spirit. That's how he does his best running. He's one of those that wants a fight, but I think a couple other horses in here want that similar tactical position. Tis a Magician, the 1 horse from the inside. He's one that gets stronger as the distances progress, but has that big kind of high cruising speed. That cliche is very apropos for him. I think he in midcourt will be right off of the hip of Medina Spirit, if not pressing him. I'm going to come back to Tripoli, the 7, as the top pick. I think he's going to get a good trip. He's well posted, kind of drawn towards the outside. I would love to pick Idol, the 8. He's training really well. I mean, Richard Baltas could have a huge weekend, but he's also kind of a bigger horse. He's a son of Curlin, and I just think he's going to need the race coming off the layoff. He's been away since March. He fits that improving 4-year-old kind of angle, but he also needs every bit of the 10 furlongs to be successful. I think it's a great opportunity for them to set him up for a good race in the Breeders' Cup, but I think Tripoli will be the horse on the day on Saturday.
I'm with you. I like Idol a lot as a horse. I was big on him the day that he won the Big Cap, and I expect big things from him moving forward. I hope he gets a good setup race to put him in position for sort of to round out the year strong. Just one other horse I wanted to mention, Express Train. I have sort of a love-hate relationship with this horse. Super disappointing and flat last out in the Pacific Classic after that breakthrough win in the San Diego Handicap. I think for me, when I look at Express Train, I'm like, what's this horse's issue? And the only I could point to is that Pacific Classic was at 1.25 miles. I think he's probably at his best between 1 mile and a 16th, 1 mile and an 1/8. Won the San Pasquale here in January, and that was one of his better races. And I just think maybe this return to 1 mile and an 1/8 and perhaps slight regression coming out of that San Diego Handicap got the clunker out of the way in the Pac Classic. Maybe bounces back here with a nice effort. And pace is an interesting thing here. As we mentioned, there are a couple here who could go. Medina Spirit should go. Tis a Magician, we know, will be up front. And Express Train, to me, just sort of strikes me as a horse who might just be, just trip into the perfect kind of race here, sitting, a length or 2 behind, saving ground. He's down to the inside, and you might get a better price on him than we've seen in a while. You might get, who knows, you might get 7-2 or 4-1 or even 9-2 if Medina Spirit ends up taking a whole lot of love. We know Tripoli will definitely get back because he's headed in the right direction. So let's move. Oh, you want to say something about this race? I thought you had no opinion in this race. Come on, are you jumping in with awesome again?
You left out the other sheriffs, midcourt.
Okay, is that
midcourt won the San Pasquale last year, 2020. He was off December to June. Just want to point out that was one of his best races. That 112 figure was the best race he'd run since the Big Cap when he was 3rd in 2020. I just, John Sheriff just takes his time with horses. And I just looked at this real quick before he went on the air. He will be right there sitting off. Maldonado rode him wonderfully. It was a classified allowance. Don't know what he beat. Mastering, if I remember, I think that's a Baffert. I'm not sure. But the 9 furlongs is going to be right up his alley. I'm going to bet midcourt to win here and take a shot.
Man, you threw me off, man. I thought you were saving your powder for the race at Belmont. I thought you were all about the Champagne Stakes. Didn't even want to bother with this race.
I can't pass a race in which I think I'm going to get a half decent price.
All right, now let's head east to Belmont Saturday. A couple of really big races out there. We'll start it off with the Champagne Stakes. Winner gets an automatic ticket to the TVG Juvenile. Did I do that all right, Christina?
Yep, I got my polo shirt on. Not sure if you can see Angel Blue.
Ellis, I thought coming out of the hopeful, I mean, obviously Witt, we saw take that bad stumble out of the gate, ran a huge race. I thought, well, Ellis has a strong opinion here. He's going to give me Witt, right? I mean, but no, you're not giving me Witt. You're giving me somebody else.
No, the morning line's already out, as you can see. Witt's 2-1. Now I'm going to look at the 2 My Prankster. And you see that little green, that's an angle match. So there is a pre-populated angle. There's about 40 with stats race plans, which basically show people how to set up your own angles. And I had some great conversations at the NHC with a bunch of people on how angles work and how much great it can be. I gave a guy one the next weekend, and he got a $13 winner. We have one for basically it's fitness angle. It's called workouts per day. That's for first-time starters. I twisted to second-time starters. And when you see an angle match, green means it's profitable. You can see the ROI is 11%. And when you click on the title, you actually can see the angle. So we're going to click on the title of the angle. And this is where you just get brainstorms and do stuff. And this angle for the last year came up 107 races, 112 horses. So very few crossover, 20% win, 18% place, 11% ROI. But I want to click on 6 months. I didn't tell our producer this, but let's go to 6 months. And that's 81%. And this is going to be for a lot of younger horses, 2- and 3-year-olds now. And when you look at this, it's 48 races, 52 starters, 11 winners, and 54% in the money, but 81% ROI. This has to do with fitness. So what this comes from, for those just curious, this was taught by my mentor, Dick Mitchell, not to bore everybody, but if a horse has 75% of the number of furlongs to the number of days since its last race. So quick example, this horse is, not last race, the horse's fifth, his workouts for the last 30 days, my Prankster, which goes back to September 3rd, and he worked 4 furlongs, 4, 5, and 5, and you add 5, that's the rule. And then you count how many days, September 3rd to October 2nd, it's going to end up at 29 days and 23 furlongs, which is 75%, which means he is fit as a fiddle. Now let's go look at his PPs. And that angle is very profitable, as you can see, particularly with what I consider to be young horses. Just look at his race. I mean, he won by 10. He just dominated that race. He relaxed. He showed maturity for a first-time starter coming from off the pace. Saez is riding back. 95 speed figure is the second best in the race to Gunite, the 5. Let's look at the 5 real quick. Gunite, who, believe it or not, is 4-1 morning line, which I'm surprised. But the Chad Brown, Jack Christopher is 9-5, and the Fletcher Witt is 2. Gunite got 100. He won by 5.5 at Saratoga. But Gunite was running in a Grade 1 hopeful. Go back to my Prankster. He was running in a maiden race. This horse is just bred. He's another Into Mischief. We know how successful Into Mischiefs have been with 2-year-old and 3-year-old males and females the last couple of years. It's Fletcher, it's Saez, it's 5-2. The angle says he's fit as a fiddle, and I am pretty much in love with my Prankster in the Champagne.
Yeah, all right, Christina, you've got an alternative opinion here.
I do, but a similar type horse in that they have just had one race under their belt, right to his outside. I like Jack Christopher. He is 9-5 on the morning line. It's not very creative, but I think he's the fastest horse in here. I think he's quicker than Witt and my Prankster away from the gate. I think he'll be on the lead, and I think he can just improve his position from there. The stat I pulled was with regard to Chad Brown. You're going to find a pretty high statistic like this from the Chad Browns, from the Todd Pletchers, the Bob Bafferts. They get a lot of nice young horses, and especially this time of year, break your maiden, you jump right into a graded stakes race. And so that's what we're dealing with Jack Christopher. They had high expectations going to Saratoga, and I think they have high expectations coming into the Champagne. He's at 26% with horses in this scenario, 12 winners, 47 starters, $4.50 median win payout. Not too bad. It's going to be a shorter price that you'll get on Jack Christopher this weekend, but I think he is the next logical horse to just kind of go out there, steal it gate to wire, and then take on that 2-turn test in the Breeders' Cup.
All right. The 10th race at Belmont on Saturday is another really big race. The Woodward at Belmont, the Woodward Stakes, $500,000 up for grabs. Some really good older horses here, including Maxfield, multiple graded stakes winner, trying to rebound from that Whitney loss. He didn't run all that badly there, just got beat by Nick's Go. But a couple of really nice horses here. Like you mentioned, Art Collector, Code of Honor, Forza d'Oro, who went off as the favorite in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. A number of different ways you can go here. Christina, where are you going?
Well, let's talk about a couple of the horses just quickly. Dr. Post, who we're on right now, the one, he came out west for the Pacific Classic. He ran such a strange race. He just really ran in spots. He looked like he was going to run last at one point, but then he ended up re-rallying, finished third. I'm just not sure he is almost mentally mature enough yet. And that sounds strange to say because he's 4 years old, but he's not quite tapped into all of his ability. The two, Maxfield, for me, lost nothing in defeat last time out in the Whitney, and really nothing in defeat both times that he's run. On the West Coast, he came out for the big cap. I think that they ran him back a little too quick that day. I think Brendan Walsh kind of wanted to go to Dubai, but this was the spot, and Godolphin won the Dubai World Cup anyways. And so that's what happened with Maxfield for that loss. So he's the horse to beat. Art Collector, the 3, is quickly improving. Again, he's getting good right now. He's in a great form cycle, third off the layoff for Bill Mott. But the horse I'm going to select is Code of Honor. He's the 5 in here. And there's a couple different reasons. He's a horse for course at Belmont. You can see his record there at Belmont. He has 3 wins from 6 starts. He's on the board in the other 2. This is his home. This is where he does his best running. He also enters, you can see, off a career best Equibase speed figure, that 120 that's down there encircled. Not only the best speed figure coming in for the race, for the distance and surface of the race, for this particular horse. There are a lot of things to like about that last race at Monmouth for Code of Honor. And I think part of what might have accounted for him kind of tapping into one of his best performances was Paco Lopez jumping aboard. We know how aggressive Paco Lopez is, and he was right there and aggressive with this horse in the Island. I think he's going to do the same coming up this weekend in the Woodward. I pulled the stat with regard to Shug and Paco teaming up together. I didn't think it was something that happened very often. And if you filter to the horses that actually finished first, so select finish there, you'll see all of those horses have run at Monmouth. So when Shug sends a horse to Monmouth, Paco's aboard, they've connected for 4 wins from 15 starts, 27% win rate, 47% in the money. But I think it's significant in the fact that he's decided to bring Paco to New York. This isn't a huge field. There's 6 horses in here. I'm sure that there were plenty of riders in New York that would have been raising their hand to jump aboard Code of Honor. I think you're going to see him ride in the same way, put him right into the race. Forza d'Oro is quicker from the outside. I don't think he's going to be on the lead, but I think they are going to take kind of that different tactic. And then the last thing I just wanted to check was the True Odds page. Always go to the True Odds page on any race. I always take a look at those pace projections at the late pace figure. Let's filter for late pace. Code of Honor has the quickest projected late pace. So if he's in a good position early and he can finish his race and he's over his favorite track, I think we might be able to see Code of Honor go home with yet another big win from Belmont.
All right, Ellis, quick pick in the Woodward?
No, I mean, well, I like Dr. Post when he went out west, and she's right. I mean, I thought Rosario had ridden him beautifully before that, and it's a question mark. I mean, at 6-1, I might take a shot with Dr. Post, but I really have to look at the race. But Christina makes a really good case for Code of Honor coming off that race, and Shug keeping horses. If you go back really quick to, I don't know if it comes up on these PPs with Code of Honor, but if you go back to the PPs in the 5, one of the things I have set, and you can set, is how trainers do back to back, and if it's not there, it's fine. But I mean, yeah, McGahee, one last start right there, 17%. Okay, I thought it was stronger than that, but keeping a horse in form, Shug doesn't have the kind of luck that I thought he does with keeping a horse in form. But that was a great race. He's been off long enough to not bounce, regress, I should say. I hate the word bounce, and I can see the case.
All right, I'm a glutton for punishment. I am going to give Forza d'Oro one more shot. I just love when Belmont lets me down at short prices. So we're going to try it again. So that does it for the Saturday action. I will say at the time of this recording, The entries are not yet out for Sunday's big races, but you can check back in later in the day on Thursday, and then certainly by Friday, and you'll get everything you need for Sunday's big races, including the Frizette at Belmont and the Zenyatta Stakes at Santa Anita. Before we sign off, I do want to remind you, if you just tuning in and you don't have a Stats Raceland subscription, it's super easy and super affordable, and now would be the time. New customers only. Try 1 month of an unlimited Raceland subscription for only $1. That's $129 savings. The promo code is SRLM1E. And for everyone, promo code BC199 gets you a quarterly unlimited Raceland subscription. You can get all that at equibase.com/offers. All right, this has been a lot of fun. We are up on time. We are going to be watching all the racing this weekend. We wish everyone a lot of luck at home. For Ellis Starr, for Christina Blacker, I'm Dan Tordjman. We'll see you next time.